بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in his book, إذا جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. This is one rule I really hope the Christians would follow.
Explain it.
Yes,
in English,
basically if a, how would you say, a fasiq, like a ignominious, a sinful person, if he comes to you with any type of news, you should try to find out if
scrutinize it.
Scrutinize it and find the truth of it. See if it's real. And especially, this is just for news about life. What about
let alone about the faith?
Let alone about the creator of the universe.
Yes, this is very serious. So let's get started. All right, first off, okay.
So we through the last episode.
In the last episode, brother, we let Paul describe himself to us and to our viewers everywhere in the world.
Quite an explicit
description
he gave us.
Can you give us a quick summation?
A quick summation. First, he admitted that he's a liar. And then he admitted that he's a fool. And then he admitted that he's a crafty, sneaky guy. And he...
Full of trickery.
Full of trickery. And he said that he was a Jew once. And then he said another time that he is a Roman, and that he's a Greek, and that he's a Cilician, and that he's an Egyptian. So the lies don't end. And now we're going to see how he describes himself further. We're not going to say anything ourselves. We're going to let Paul describe Paul.
So in other words, Paul is peeling the onion rings one by one about his personality. Let's follow that.
In 1 Corinthians 10:33, he says, even as I try to please everyone in every way. In other words, he's trying just to gain customers, a salesman.
Salesman pitch.
Because if you have a message, you don't try to please everyone. You deliver your message regardless of whether they like it or not.
The message has to be
because the message has
genuine
to be,
and truthful
to
the
be
source.
guarded with even your life.
Even if it doesn't please others, because
absolutely
you أنت مؤتمن. You are the vicegerent to the truth on it. So people has to be accommodating themselves to the truth and not the other way around. You don't accommodate
he says,
truth to this.
even as I try to please everyone in every way, for I am not seeking my own good, but the good of many. In the book of Matthew 24:35, it says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Jesus, peace be upon him, is saying that the truth has to be kept with all our integrity and all our...
The word would change, but the truth will not change.
Yes. And Paul was trying to change
just the opposite.
Truth. Exactly the opposite of what Jesus said. In the 2 Corinthians 11:17, Paul says, in this self-confident boasting I am, not talking as the Lord would, but as a fool.
So this is now the third time he's called himself a fool.
Yes. In the 1 Corinthians 10:23, he says, I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive.
Who gave him this right?
He gave himself the right to do anything.
He is saying
he's a fool.
He is himself. And he is admitting that everything that he is doing not necessarily is constructive.
Right.
In other words, to the faith is not constructive.
What he's saying,
any clearer than this.
He said, what pleases me, I'm going to do it
anyway,
regardless of if it's good or bad.
Yes.
Because
if it's constructive to the faith or not. Yani, he is a faith above the faith. That's what he's saying. And he will admit it further on in much clearer way when he puts his gospel versus the gospel of Jesus.
Now, we're going to say in the letter to the Romans 7:14, this is a long explanation.
And
He's
please,
explaining.
our viewers, follow us through this. Challenge the truth of what we're saying the Gospels. We're giving you the sources.
I'm giving the source and the quotation.
One by one quotation.
So that you could,
please, if you follow it, you will benefit and we will benefit. Because I think we will rise
because
in size
only the truth
in your eyes, and the faith will rise in spite.
And because we love you, and because
exactly
we were exposed to this truth, and
God
will
share it
ask us on the day of judgment,
why haven't you shared it with us? So
truth that you have discovered, why didn't you deliver it? If you claim that you love them, you should have saved them.
Yeah. So
and
out of love,
we are
being delivered, not out
delivering
of shame.
Absolutely. So in Romans 7:14 to 25, this is a long description, how he's describing himself. For we know that the law is spiritual. He is saying that the law is spiritual. But I am carnal. He's saying that the law is spiritual, but he is of flesh and bone and blood. So he is different than the spiritual. But I am carnal.
So he is sitting up now.
Sold under sin.
Sold under sin.
So he's describing himself
as a sinful,
as carnal, sold to the sin. Sold under sin. For that which I do, I allow not for what I would. That do I not, but what I hate, that I do.
And don't judge him by his actions, because
if
he hates
then
them. They are wrong.
I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that is good. Now then, it is no more I that do it. He's saying he doesn't do what he wants to do, but what he doesn't want to do, he does.
Therefore, he is not accountable.
So he's therefore,
don't judge me for my sins, because I hate them, although I do them. But because I still do them and hate them, therefore, it's tolerable.
The speech of a madman. It's the speech of a madman.
Exactly. You see, no, this is
that,
schizophrenic, brother.
Yes.
Now, I brought this quotation, and it's, even though it's a long one and it's confusing sometimes, because he wants to confuse people.
And through this confusion,
because that's why they invented something called mystery in the church. In Christianity, they invented something called the mystery of the church, the mystery of the incarnation,
the mystery
of the Trinity, the mystery of God dying, the mystery of dying on the cross, the mystery of resurrection.
All is mysteries.
Everything is mystery. So he is confusing people by bringing opposites, so that when he brings that, people say, oh, it's so
smart
deep. It's so deep that I didn't understand.
It's above my head.
Sounds like he actually.
That's trickery at its excellent example.
And he learned from the great
sounds
philosophers
good.
of Greece, huh?
Unbelievable.
I don't understand it, but it sounds good, so I'm going to
exactly.
believe it.
Therefore, it's my fault not to understand it. It's not what was said.
Yeah.
You blame yourself on it, and that's one notch beyond treachery. This is, brothers. It's like almost mesmerizing people through mystery.
Not almost.
Yeah. Magic.
Do you think maybe he was possessed, or did he make a deal with the shaitan, with the devil, or do you think?
No, brother. His character, if you know his history, his previous history, his history, he was always looking for recognition. He was always looking to control, gain. And he was looking for personal gain. So if you put that, his background, he used to sell the Christians. But every time he was selling a Christian, he was creating 10 more. So he said, instead of killing Christians, why don't I kill Christianity itself?
The true Christianity, and he did.
And benefiting from it. The proof about that, brother, because James, the brother of Jesus, was the head of the church after Jesus, peace be upon him, in Jerusalem. And all the apostles of Jesus were with him. Paul never saw Jesus, never heard Jesus.
Never coexist.
He
with
did
him.
not coexist with Jesus. He came after Jesus.
Not in time nor
And
in space.
He connected himself to Jesus through a dream. That he says that on the way to Damascus, we're gonna talk about that later.
And we see this story how also
How he changed it 3 times. He told the same story, but he forgot how he lied in the first.
the liar forgets how much he lies,
Yes.
so
So he
therefore
changed the
every
story
time
3
it's
times.
you will see it later
Also, there
on.
were no books written about Jesus at that time, were there? There were no books about him.
Brother, the biggest trickery of Paul and of the church,
Knowingly, the church knowingly.
the New Testament, brother, when you start with the book of Matthew, according to Matthew, and then the gospel according to Mark, and then to Luke, and then John. So the first 4 books are the 4 gospels. This is what they call the first 3 are the synoptic gospels, and the 4th one, that John, is different from the other ones. But this is what they call the official of the church.
Okay.
Because there are many, many gospels, at least 80 gospels that were written at that time.
I thought there was only 12 disciples.
No, brother. 12 disciples, yes, but none of them wrote anything.
Any of these.
This is one of the biggest tricks of the church.
This is where the
That
confusion
people
sets.
think that the gospels were written by the apostles of Jesus.
Yeah, Mark, Luke.
No,
And
none of them.
is. And this is
I
official
challenged
now.
the Pope to show me or to tell me the name of
The father of each one of them.
each one of
Only
the 4
2.
books.
No
According to
lineage.
Matthew,
Just give me.
which Matthew, where and when and how, nobody can tell you.
And that's why they used another trick
But
also, Naif.
the trick that they used, they chose 4 names that are
Similar
similar
names
to the
of
names
gospels
of the apostles, so that people assume that when they talk about John, it's one of the apostles, or when they no.
It's not. Even the church admits it now by saying according to.
Now, brother,
Talking about
Yeah.
Hudayfa, you look shocked. Yes.
none of them wrote anything.
And-
But let me finish the description. Now you'll understand.
Yes.
The first 4 books in the New Testament are the 4 Gospels. And then you have the book of Acts, and then you have the letters of Paul. But what Christians don't know, you see, what the church wanted to give,
Now
they
this
wanted
is
to
well
give,
established truth. Yani. This
yes.
is what you should.
now, the scholars of Christianity,
They all agree on what Naif was saying.
what I'm
now.
saying now
Is not
is
his
not
analysis.
my analysis.
This is the official.
I'm not outside the realm of Christianity. This is mainstream Christianity today. They admit to what I'm saying now,
Which is.
which is the first 4 books. You assume when you see the first one, Matthew, you think that Matthew was written first. And then you see the second book,
Therefore. this
Mark, you assume that Mark was written after Matthew.
Second.
And then the third book, that is Luke, you assume that it was written after the first 2. And the 4th one, John, was written after the third, the
like
3
every-
first ones.
like
every
every
logical
book
book
that
that
you
you
see.
read,
You-
you assume that the first chapter was written before the second chapter, and the second chapter before the third one, and the third one before the 4th one, and so on. But the trick that the church used, they wanted to give the illusion to the people that
These gospels. were
these
written before.
gospels influenced Paul in his letters. But they
All
know,
scholars of
the church
Christianity.
knows that the letters of Paul were written before the 4 gospels.
4 gospels.
And it's exactly the opposite. The gospels were influenced
by the letter.
by the letters of
No,
Paul.
but what the companions, the apostles, wrote these.
No.
No,
No.
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 No, because
What language is that?
nah,
No. That means yes in another language. My language? No, that means no means
no,
no.
it means
no.
definitely.
No
Definitely
means
no.
no.
All right.
You
So
know,
look,
brother,
all right, look,
what the church used.
The
Yeah.
apostles,
We're gonna have to
they
give-
wrote these books.
No.
No.
No, I'm saying that none of the four Gospels were written by any
by
apostle.
any apostles.
Dr.
These are
Naif.
unknown
Let's
persons
stop
that
here
came
because
later.
this one, I don't think we're going to, we have to pause this
Yes.
and come back after this break.
Definitely.
Oh, please return. We have a good one. Thank you. Welcome back. We stopped off in a kind of heated debate here, huh,
No,
Mr.
no, it's
Huda?
not a debate. No, he's trying.
Because
He's
what you
trying
gonna
to
tell me?
clarify
He
himself.
is-
Look, yeah, you're gonna clarify myself. Yeah, yes. Now we said that now what we understand, right? We understand what I understand is that the disciples wrote these.
No, but this is what I'm telling you.
You
The
keep
church
saying no.
admits.
Why you keep saying no?
The church admits that none of the apostles wrote anything.
يعني they chose names that
They
are
chose names that
Okay, well, who wrote these
Simil-
books then?
nobody knows who wrote them.
and all
Nobody knows
that's-
where it was
that-
written. Nobody knows who wrote them or where or why. But what they know that they have hints that these are disciples of Paul,
because
not disciples of Christ,
events
not
and
disciples of Jesus. These are disciples of Paul.
Paul came, see, Paul
how-
joined.
how did
didn't
they know
Paul
that,
join
brother?
after Jesus died? Paul joined the group after Jesus died, right?
Paul,
after, right
Paul
after.
never joined the
joined
group.
the group at all.
Paul never saw Jesus. The apostles were in
in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. He
Yeah.
was outside.
One
And
time,
then-
one
and-
time they met only.
one moment.
It's very important.
And
for
then
that.
when he started claiming that he is following Christ, he went to Jerusalem to meet the apostles. And then they argued with him and they almost killed him, and he ran away and never came back. And he claimed himself that he is the apostle to the Gentiles, and the others are the apostles to the Jews.
to the Jews.
So the religion of Jesus and all the apostles of Jesus were only to the Jews, and the one that was trying to kill the followers of Jesus
He is the one that opened it.
kidnapped Christianity
And opened it
claimed that he,
For the Gentiles. he said.
in the dream that he had, that Jesus appointed him the apostle to the Gentiles. Even though Jesus said, I was not sent to the Gentiles.
And he himself is not a Jew.
No, he was a Jew. He said he was a Jew.
Yes.
Oh, he said
He's
a lot of
Egyptian,
things.
he's
didn't he?
Egyptian Jew.
Yeah.
No.
But brother, يعني, the misconception that you have, we understand it because that's the
Every Christian in the
Has the
world
same-
thinks that these four Gospels are written by disciples of Jesus.
and when
But the church knows that none of them was written.
as research
What-
advanced into this subject, the church was cornered into admitting, if you see the older versions, the print out of these Gospels and the what they call the Holy Book from the 40s and the 30s of the 20th century and before, there were the Gospel of John, the Gospel of Matthew. Nowadays, after they were faced with this researched fact that they all agreed, they added, so they were in a dilemma. They were in a corner. How did they exit from this dilemma? They said, according to. So they casted some doubt in it, but the least of doubts, so that it might passes by unchallenged. According to.
Brother,
Matthew.
let me simplify it to you. The image that most Christians in the world, and probably when you were before, you had the same image, is that the four Gospels, because they remind people of the
names of
apostles of Jesus, people assumed that these are written by the apostles of Jesus.
Assumed.
And that's what people were told.
And
Yeah.
the church
kept hush.
quiet about this assumption, even though it knows better. But
when it
now,
came out-
now the fact that the church admits to that none of the four are written by the apostles of Jesus, and most probably are either apostles of Paul, in other words, students of Paul, or apostles of the apostles of Paul.
Because of the facts and the
And-
prose.
And the letters
style of
of
prose that
Paul
was written.
were written at least 20 to 40 years before the first gospel was written. So the illusion that the church wants to give people is that Paul was influenced
By these
by
Gospels.
these
Gospels.
gospels, while in reality the gospels were written
And influence.
and influenced by the letters of Paul. So it's exactly the opposite. So if you know that the letters of Paul were written before the four Gospels,
Always-
why did you put them in reverse order? You put the Gospels before and
To-
then the letter.
to
the
justify
letters.
this image of you thinking that these came first.
It shows that
Purposely.
premeditated, the church premeditatedly wanted the people to have the illusion that Paul was influenced by these Gospels.
All right, then where are the Gospels? Where are the Gospels of the companions of Jesus? Where are the Gospels? Where are they?
Good question.
None existed. None existed.
No, I'm talking about the companions of Jesus.
Yes,
None
I'm
existed.
telling you,
The 12
none
disciples.
of
None
them
existed.
wrote anything.
Where are the books?
There are some Gospels now. Look, the four Gospels that they called canonic.
Which are
The
now
canonic, it means the ones that the church
officially.
accept them officially. But there are more than 80 Gospels in the world.
But there are only 12 disciples.
12 disciples, but not one is proven that,
That
he,
wrote-
that he wrote anything.
Okay, so where do the 80 Gospels come from?
So, for example,
later people that came after and that
Some of them are, because you see, at that era in the 2nd century, and then
although this is not the subject of
unfortunately
I'm sorry.
now
Yes,
we-
yes, okay, go. Let's, all right.
and we're being
no,
sidewinded.
but
by-
Another
it's
episode.
important.
important.
Nevertheless,
Another
Yeah.
episode.
it's
but
important.
We can clear it up, but go ahead and finish about
Yeah,
Paul.
I know it's important because
I know, but-
this confusion
is
shows that
that the strict
99% of
the
the
strict
Christians
is working.
is working.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's also
Exactly.
good because we saw the trickery, the deception of Paul, but now we also understand that it's not just limited to Paul. It's
Now
also
we
Not
see,
only-
now we
we
see,
see
the results
applied
after,
side.
after 20 centuries
yeah,
Yes.
applied
of
side.
this lie. We see now
And then how
the
do you-
Yes,
confusion,
exactly.
the result of
The
it.
towing of the
Yeah.
party line, yes.
I understood like that. Then how do you understand? Isn't that how you understood that the disciples wrote this? That's what I understood.
I never
Yeah,
really
but
thought
this
it-
is-
it was an assumption on my behalf.
Yeah,
that
always.
The disciples had written.
Always.
And this
This
is
is-
what the church wanted to give.
If you ask any knowledgeable high person in any church anywhere in the world, he would admit to you that this is not the fact. That's the illusion. And then they kept quiet about this illusion because it serves exactly the design and the purpose of the faith that was designed by this church. But the facts, the analytical
Rather,
facts,
by the same token, that you never knew that Paul said about himself that he's a liar, that he's a fool, that and it was right in front of
in
you.
front of you all these years.
Exactly by the same token, you assumed also wrongfully that the
But
tell
I
you,
must say it was a logical
always-
assumption because
Always
most
listen
things
to your
are
mother. 'Cause
chronological,
my mother
you know?
said to assume is to make an ass out of you and me, right?
Yes, this is a famous one.
ASSMU, yeah.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know, you and me.
Assume.
Yes.
So definitely. Type, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry. I was.
Yeah,
Yes.
Just wanted
but-
to get a little straight.
But
there.
it's genuine and typical of every Christian. This is the illusion that they wanted,
I mean,
and they
this is how I
succeeded in
understood it. This
creating.
is how I
Yeah,
understood it.
exactly.
and that's
That's why we call it trickery,
and-
because designed.
Yeah, and
If it was
and also
by chance, misunderstanding, but when it is purposefully, then it's a trickery.
brother, that's why we gave it that much time, even though it's not the subject, because it's something very important. When you are confused,
We know
others
that
also
most of
are confused about it, but we wanted to bring that truth once and for all, that none of the Gospels, of the four Gospels, were written by any of the apostles of Jesus.
and the word
And,
according
and the four Gospels, the church admits now that they were written after the letters of Paul.
everything that was said now is the official position of all the laymen of all churches of Christianity anywhere in the world that we're saying now. There is no quarrel about it anymore. So what we're saying is the common element among all these different.
Just to give you a small hint, brother. The full names of the apostles of Jesus are known. Why aren't the four gospels written by full names? Why only Matthew?
Have you ever seen a book?
Because you assume that
Brother,
it was Paul.
let me ask you even a more candid question.
So,
Just 1 second, because it's very important. Have you ever seen any published book anywhere in the world that is
only with the first name?
The first name of a writer? Anywhere in the world?
No,
unless Madonna wrote a book.
of course not. Yes. Of course not. But the thing,
So-
like you said, but the thing is that they
No
were so
publishing house,
popular.
brother, no publishing house anywhere in the world, if you give them a manuscript and you tell them this is
Written
by
by
Abdullah, they would not accept it. Give me the full name, at least 2 to 3 names that follows the family name and probably the father's name or middle name. Why? To assume responsibility for legal purposes. But now, no one, even the church is not responsible for this, because according to,
we told you it's a code.
we told you, we didn't lie to you, we gave you the doubt that according to John, according to Matthew,
The disciple.
No.
no,
But this
unknown,
No.
just name.
Did they say? Did the church say the disciple?
The disciple Matthew, the
according-
disciple John, the disciple, no?
Okay, so Dr. Saud, I think we have to wrap
Yeah,
it
exactly.
up now. Wow,
sorry.
thank you for that enlightening information. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Hudayfa is also going to thank you. And I'm pretty sure all of our viewers will also thank you. So there you have it, folks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.